One evening, Olaf sat across from Emma in the kitchen. He hesitated so long, then whispered finally, "Emma, I'm sorry. I'm in love with another woman, and I want a divorce." She did not scream, she did not cry, she just looked at him in silence. He wished she would scream, curse, do anything, just to hear she was still alive. But her silence struck him with more force than any scream. Her silence destroyed him. He felt something within him die, a weight upon his chest. He had committed an unforgivable act. Her eyes spoke volumes. Then suddenly she smiled, a faint, mysterious smile. He didn't understand, but it scared him. He felt in that moment that she had passed beyond him. He wished with all his heart that he could rewind time to when he spoke words he wasn't ready to say. He hadn't understood her smile then, but he would too late. She said quietly, "I accept, but I have 2 conditions." He stared at her in shocked surprise, as though she had slapped him with words this time. "So readily? And what are the conditions?" She said steadily, "First, we wait a month before we break up." "Yes, a month. It will pass quickly," he muttered. She continued, her eyes softer now. "And the other condition," she breathed quietly, "I wish we could spend this month like a loving couple. No fight, no frost. I want all of us, me and you and Lucas and those people around us, to have a pretty image of us in our hearts." He wanted to say something, to protest, to explain to her that even now, sitting beside her, he was betraying her. But he couldn't. "Please," she went on, "I don't want to be remembered as the shadow of a woman betrayed." He nodded mutely. For the first time in years, he looked into her eyes and saw something odd. Maybe it was pain, maybe it was farewell. "You'll have what you insist on, Emma," he breathed. "I'll try my best to make it a month you deserve." She smiled weakly and stared at her trembling hand on the table, as if trying to hold on to something that was slowly slipping away. On those mornings of the month, the house transformed. The sun that passed through the windows was warmer. The aroma of coffee that Emma prepared every day had an inexplicable sense of peace. Olaf sat in the table, watching her put his cup down in front of him with a gentle smile. Not a duty smile, but a goodbye smile that was spoken wordlessly. Lucas was the center of their little world. Olaf started taking him to school every morning. They went to the same bakery for his favorite pastries and talked about everything: space, dinosaurs, and why the sky is blue. For the first time, Olaf wasn't just hearing, he was listening. He wasn't there in body alone, he was there in heart. In the evenings, they cooked dinner together. Emma laughed when Olaf messed up chopping vegetables and Lucas on purpose flung flour on his dad. Laughter echoed through the house whose walls had not heard it in years. Olaf was not pretending, but with each laugh something small cracked inside him because he knew each moment of joy was a step toward the end. He watched Emma chat softly to Lucas, get his school clothes in order, kiss him goodnight, and something inside Olaf tore a little bit each time. He asked himself again and again, how had he treated her like a ghost all these years? How did he miss this well of peace and love? Emma was never cold, as he'd once thought. She simply waited for someone to take hold of her heart. One night, the three of them sat together watching an old movie. Olaf was squished in between, Lucas lying on one shoulder, Emma on the other. In the quietness of the moment, Olaf felt a deep feeling of warmth, not passion, though peace. A feeling he couldn't quite put his finger on, yet hoped that it would continue forever. It was not a goodbye that month. It was a page too beautiful to turn, and one that would never be forgotten. That evening, they were sitting in one of the serene glass rooms at the company, where Sophia and Olaf would sit. But tonight no smiles, no gentle glances. Sophia was seated across from him, her eyes holding something different, doubt, disillusion, or a quiet fury. "You've changed, Olaf," she said, her voice cold, though her words cracked within. "You're not the same man." He didn't respond. He just looked at her. Her tone sharpened. "Do you still love your wife?" He hesitated, then said with rare honesty, "I don't know if it's love, but I've known that what Emma and I have is real, quiet, pure. It's something I never knew before, but now I see in my son's laughter, the quiet nights at home, in the small things I never valued." Sophia taunted, a biting sarcasm on her lips. She leaned forward. "Have you forgotten? I gave you life. I gave you dreams, passion, power. Emma, she's just your safe shadow." Then she stood, her voice rising. "I have money, I have influence, I can buy anything, even you. Do you understand?" Olaf looked up at her, steady and calm, something she hadn't seen before. "I'm not for sale, Sophia. Perhaps I was late to see it, but now I know who I am and what I want." She stepped forward, her voice threatening and low. "You don't know me, Olaf. I can kill you. I can eliminate you from this company, from all the circles, shut all the doors in your face." He stared at her for a long moment, then stated, his voice soft but keen as a knife, "If you believe I am afraid of losing, then you do not know me." He rose, looked into her eyes, a long final glance, as if releasing a memory once that had been everything, and stated with serene finality, "Goodbye, Sophia." He left her there, standing in a silence heavy with pride, pain, and a chill deeper than autumn's. And as he turned and walked away from her, he felt his chest expand, free from a weight that had brought him down for years. He didn't look back. He didn't delay. He had somewhere to return, a home that was finally waiting for him. A place where his son's laughter brightened up each night, and Emma's gentle eyes yearned for nothing but his presence. He had to get on that train, the one called happiness, the one he came to know too late doesn't wait for second guessing. The month went by, as seconds have a tendency to when lived with open hearts. The days were not counted by numbers, but by the warmth of every passing second they shared together. Each morning dawned anew, each evening returned a piece of themselves that had almost vanished. But in that peace, something began to whisper. Silent fear began creeping into Olaf's heart. He noticed a faint pallor on Emma's face. It was subtle at first, but growing. Her voice, once gentle and bright, now grew weak. Her laugh, once rich, now had a quiet tiredness behind it. He asked her softly and repeatedly, "Are you okay?" She always answered with a slight smile and a whispery voice, "I'm fine, just a little tired, that's all." But he was not reassured. But he didn't push her. Maybe he didn't want to ruin her mood, or maybe he didn't want to assume there was something to ruin her mood. But he saw everything, her lagging footsteps, her gazing into space, the fatigue she tried to hide. And he didn't know that his worst nightmare was about to be exposed just days later. It was on a rainy evening when Olaf came back home yelling, "Emma! Lucas!" No response. He headed to the kitchen. The living room? Empty? Then he saw her, slumped over in the hallway, unconscious, completely still. "Emma!" he yelled, running towards her. His heart nearly blew up. He held her slumped body in his arms. Her skin cool, her face deathly white, her breathing shallow, like life itself had begun to recede from her. He didn't think. He grabbed his phone and called for an ambulance. His hands shook as he clung to her, repeating her name. "Emma, please don't do this to me. Open your eyes. Say something." The ambulance arrived. They rushed her in. Olaf sat in the back beside her, holding her lifeless hand, unable to look away from her face. Fear, pure, blinding fear, consumed him. "You'll be okay. Just hold on, please." The sirens wailed, machines beeped, his heart pounding, all blending into a moment he'd never forget. And he didn't know. This moment would change everything. At the hospital, the doctor entered softly and spoke with crushing calm. "Mrs. Emma is in the final stage of cancer. She has only days left." Olaf collapsed. He sat next to her, kissing her hand, sobbing openly. "Why didn't you tell me?" She looked at him weakly, whispering, "Same night, you came asking for a divorce? I had just left the doctor's. I just wanted to leave you with a good memory, especially for Lucas." The final goodbye. A week later, Emma passed away. No screams, no complaint, just silence, as always. Olaf wept like he never wept before. He did not release her hand, not even when it grew cold. At the funeral, Lucas went up to his dad and handed him an envelope. "Dad, Mom asked me to give this to you after she passed on." With shaking hands, Olaf opened the letter and read, "I knew someday you'd understand that real love isn't fiery passion. It's the memory that lingers, even when we're dead. I loved you in silence, and I only hoped that you had seen a little closer."